A black little girl told a millionaire CEO to stay silent. The reason will shock you. He stepped into his luxury car expecting silence, comfort, and control, everything a man of his stature was used to. But instead, a small, trembling voice cut through the air. "Shut up." The words came from a black little girl sitting in the back seat, her eyes burning with something far deeper than childish defiance. In that single instant, the millionaire CEO's world shifted. He was stunned, confused, and outraged. Yet the reason behind her words would unravel into a story that no amount of wealth, power, or arrogance could prepare him for. The man was Robert Kingsley, a self-made CEO who had built his empire from the ground up, or so he liked to tell people. In reality, his success rested not only on sharp business moves, but also on exploiting loopholes, cutting corners, and benefiting from systems stacked in his favor. His wealth insulated him from the struggles of ordinary life. Every morning, he was chauffeured in a black luxury sedan through neighborhoods he barely noticed, his tinted windows shielding him from the world outside. But that day was different. When Robert slid into the leather seat, briefcase in hand, he realized he wasn't alone. A small black girl, no older than 8, sat quietly in the corner. Her presence seemed out of place against the backdrop of polished wood panels and smooth leather seats. The driver glanced nervously at the rearview mirror, as though he knew more than he was willing to say. Robert, irritated, demanded an explanation. But before he could speak further, the girl's voice cut in, sharp, unafraid, and startlingly direct. "Shut up." Robert froze. No one, not even his highest-paid executives, dared speak to him like that. And yet, here was this child, her gaze unwavering, her words dripping with a truth he didn't yet understand. Who was she? Why was she here? And how had she dared to silence him, a man who commanded rooms full of people with a single word? At first, Robert dismissed her as the child of some employee or driver, perhaps lost, confused, or in need of help. But the way she looked at him told another story. This wasn't a look of fear. It was accusation. The little girl clutched a worn backpack tightly, its fabric frayed at the seams. From its side pocket, Robert noticed a stack of papers sticking out. School worksheets, coloring pages, and something that looked like a newspaper clipping. She seemed small against the vastness of the car, yet her presence filled the space with an unsettling weight. As the car moved forward, Robert demanded answers from his driver, but the man kept his eyes on the road, his silence only deepening. The mystery. The girl shifted in her seat, finally pulling out the folded newspaper. She held it up with trembling hands, and Robert's eyes caught the headline. It was about him. The article detailed his company's role in displacing families from their homes to build a massive new development. Entire blocks of low-income housing had been bulldozed, leaving behind rubble, broken promises, and shattered lives. "This was my house," the girl whispered. Her voice cracked, but her eyes did not waver. "You took it away." Robert's throat tightened. He remembered the project vaguely, just another deal, another acquisition that had earned him millions. To him, it was numbers on a page, a success. Story to tell at the next board meeting, but to this child, it was her home, her family, her safety. The weight of her words grew heavier as the car rolled through streets Robert had never truly seen. He glanced out the window, and for the first time, he noticed the boarded-up buildings, the weary faces of families carrying boxes, the children walking barefoot through cracked sidewalks. This was the aftermath of his success. The invisible. Cost he had never bothered to calculate. The girl's defiance grew stronger with each passing minute. "You don't get to talk," she said firmly, her small fists clenched. "Not until you listen." And so, for perhaps the first time in years, Robert Kingsley remained silent. The car stopped in front of what looked like an abandoned lot. The driver lowered his head, unwilling to meet Robert's eyes. The girl stepped out, motioning for Robert to follow. Hesitant, uncomfortable, and yet strangely compelled, he obeyed. The lot was filled with debris, broken furniture, scattered toys, and walls spray-painted with desperate messages. "We will not leave." "Homes, not profits." "Justice for families." The girl pointed to a spot on the cracked pavement. "Right here," she said. "That was my room." Robert stared at the ground. His expensive shoes crunched against the rubble, and for the first time, he felt the fragility of the empire he had built. The child's voice pierced the silence. "You have everything. We had nothing. And then, you took even that away." Her words struck harder than any boardroom criticism, any market loss. This wasn't business. This was life, and he had stolen it from people too powerless to fight back. The girl dropped her backpack on the ground, spilling its contents: school photos, a stuffed bear missing an ear, and a drawing of a house with bright windows and flowers in front. "This is what you destroyed," she said. Robert felt something he hadn't in years: shame. The weight of her truth was unbearable. For once, there was no money, no negotiation, no strategy that could undo what he had done. As the driver silently guided them back to the car, Robert sat motionless, haunted by the little girl's words. He realized that silence, something he had once wielded as a weapon in meetings, now felt like a sentence. He could not defend himself, not to her, not to the truth. In the days that followed, the encounter gnawed at him. The girl's eyes appeared in his dreams, her small voice echoing. In his mind, for the first time, his wealth felt like a burden rather than a shield. Robert began to notice what he had ignored all his life. He read the stories of families displaced, listened to the voices of activists, and saw the faces of children robbed of stability. He couldn't undo the past, but he could choose how to move forward. Quietly, he began funneling resources into rebuilding homes, funding schools, and restoring what his empire had destroyed. Not for recognition, not for profit, but because he had been forced to see the human cost of his ambition. And yet, no matter what he did, one truth remained. He would never erase the moment when a little black girl told him to shut up. Those words were not disrespect. They were justice. They were the silencing of arrogance, the breaking of power, the piercing of conscience. As Robert stood at his office window weeks later, overlooking the city skyline, he asked himself a question that would never leave him. What good is a fortune if it is built on the ruins of someone else's life? The answer, as the little girl had shown him, was simple. It was worth nothing at all.